Welcome back, everyone. So, this video continues our series on Descartes' meditations. Today, we're going to talk about the evil genius hypothesis and how it helps Descartes discover his first piece of knowledge, the Cogito. At the beginning of this video, I'm going to have you consider two cases that might seem unrelated to what we're talking about, but I promise to bring it back. I'm also going to talk about the evil genius hypothesis. Then we'll talk about the Cogito, what it is, how it survives all these doubts, and then the lessons that Descartes wants to draw from this consideration. So let's start out with a sort of math question. Don't worry, it's not particularly difficult. If you can do addition and subtraction, you're good. It's very quick. Here we go. A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat costs exactly $1 more than the ball. So how much does the ball cost? Get your answer. All right, now that you have it, did you come up with the answer 10 cents? That's what most people come up with. But it's wrong. The correct answer is 5 cents. If the ball were to cost 10 cents, then the bat would cost $1.10. That means together they would cost $1.20. That can't be right. But if the ball costs 5 cents, then the bat costs $1.05, and so $1.05 plus 5 would be $1.10. Correct. Or consider another math problem, a little bit more tricky. The Monty Hall problem. So I'm a game show host, and I have 3 doors that I present you with. Behind one of the doors is the car that you want to win. Behind 2 of the doors is a gag gift, a goat. So I ask you to pick a door at the beginning of the game. Let's say you pick door B. Now, I, being the game host, know what's behind all these doors, so I decide to open up one of the doors with a goat to show you, one of the doors you didn't pick. So I show you door A, and I show you there's a goat behind it. And now just to mess with you a little bit, I say, okay, do you want to stick with your original door, or would you like to switch to door C? Given that your goal is to win the car, what should you do? Should you switch, or should you stay? You might be thinking, look, it doesn't matter. It's behind one of those 2 doors, so I have a 50-50 chance either way. That's wrong. In this scenario, you ought to switch. If you switch, you have a 2/3 chance of winning, and you only have a 1/3 chance of winning if you stay with your original door. You're probably thinking, wait, what? You can actually give a mathematical proof of this fact. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to I like to think about the answer the following way. When you're given the choice of a door at the beginning of the game, there's 3 doors you might choose. You might initially choose losing door number 1, losing door number 2, or the winning door. And you might adopt one of 2 strategies. You might choose to switch, you might choose to stay. So let's imagine that at the very beginning you choose losing door number 1. Now, if that happens, I, as the game show host, am going to open up losing door number 2 and show you that there's a goat behind it. And now I'm going to ask you, do you want to stay with your original door, or do you want to switch? And if you switch, you end up winning. But if you stay, you end up staying with your losing door. Well, now let's imagine that you chose losing door number 2 at the beginning of the game. Well, now I'm going to open up losing door number 1, show you there's a goat, and I'm going to ask you, do you want to switch, or do you want to stay? If you switch, you end up switching to the winning door. And if you stay, you end up staying with your original losing door. All right. The last option is you might choose the winning door at the very beginning. Now I'm going to open up either losing door number 2 or losing door number 1 to show you the goat. But once I do, I'm going to ask you, well, do you want to switch or do you want to stay? If you switch, you'll end up switching to a losing door. And if you end up staying, you'll win. So notice, on the switching strategy, in 2 of those situations you win, and in 1 of them you lose. So you have a 2/3 chance of winning. All right, so put that to the side for a moment. I'll bring it back. Last time we talked about the skeptical hypothesis that we're dreaming and how that gave rise to the dream argument. And according to Descartes, this gave us some reason to doubt any of our sensory beliefs about the physical world, and thus it posed a challenge to our knowledge of the physical world. But he said it can't give us any reason to doubt our mathematical or logical beliefs, since even if we were dreaming, 2 plus 2 still equals 4. And so it thereby poses no challenge to our knowledge of mathematics and logic. Is there any other skeptical hypothesis that would give us a reason to doubt our mathematical or logical beliefs? This is where Descartes brings up his evil genius possibility. He says, look, there's the possibility of an all-powerful God who uses all their power to deceive me. So the evil genius. even about things that seem the most simple and obvious to me. If there were an all-powerful God, have the power to make me believe that there's a computer screen in front of me, even if there wasn't. But they could also make me believe that I have a physical body, even if I didn't. And lastly, if they were all-powerful, they'd have the power to make me screw up every time I try to add 2 and 5 together, despite the fact that this seems so simple and easy to me. No, even though many students judge it to be incredibly unlikely, most students can at least get in a state of mind where they admit the possibility that they're dreaming. Might be a remote possibility, but they're usually willing to admit it as a possibility. But most students often find it much more difficult to seriously entertain even the possibility of being deceived about these simple mathematical beliefs, like 2 plus 3 equals 5. But to motivate that, remember those initial cases. The baseball and bat example. That wasn't difficult math. It's rather simple and straightforward, and it seems obvious at first that the answer is 10 cents, but that was mistaken. Your mind played a trick on you. The Monty Hall puzzle. Similarly, it might have seemed simple and obvious that there's 2 doors, and so you have a sort of 50% chance of winning whether you stay or switch. But that was wrong. Your mind played a trick on you. Similarly, the idea is, if there were an all-powerful evil genius, surely couldn't they get your mind to play a trick on you every time you try to add these things, even though they seem simple and obvious? All right. So now we've seen all the reasons for doubt that Descartes was able to think of. We have the skeptical hypotheses of sensory mistakes and illusions, dreaming, and the evil genius. The sensory mistakes and illusions give us reasons to doubt our non-ideal sensory beliefs, but our ideal sensory beliefs seem to survive. Then he brings up dreaming, and that throws into doubt all of our sensory beliefs, but our mathematical and logical beliefs seem to survive. Then he brings up the evil genius, and that seems to throw into doubt our mathematical and logical beliefs. But are there any surviving beliefs? That's the question. Now, Descartes finds one belief that he thinks survives all of this. He says, I myself do exist. But there might be some deceiver or other very powerful and very cunning who ever employs his ingenuity in deceiving me. He says, then without a doubt, I exist also if he deceives me. And let him deceive me as much as he will, he can never cause me to be nothing so long as I think that I am something. We must come to the definite conclusion that this proposition, I exist, is necessarily true every time I pronounce it, or that I mentally conceive it. So Descartes has finally arrived at a belief that he thinks is immune to all of the doubts that anyone could possibly raise. There's no possible situation where we could form this belief and be wrong. The Cogito. This is the belief that I exist. Why does this belief survive his doubts from the first meditation? He says, if you did not exist, then you couldn't have any thoughts at all. Couldn't have any experiences, couldn't have any beliefs. So in order to even have the thought that you exist, it needs to be true that you exist. Even if you're dreaming, even if there's an evil genius, anytime you actually have the thought, the belief that you exist, that thought is going to be true. So the idea is, look, my awareness of my own thought or consciousness thereby guarantees that I must exist at that moment that I'm having that thought. Now, Descartes thinks that we can learn some important lessons from this cogito that help us begin to sort of climb our way out of that skeptical hole he dug in the first meditations. Here's some of the lessons he thinks it teaches us. Lesson number 1. He thinks it teaches us that we know our own minds and thoughts better than physical objects. So beliefs about the former and not the latter must serve as the foundation for any knowledge. Now, I want to emphasize just how radical this is. People tend to think like understanding and getting knowledge about the sort of physical world in front of us, that's the easy, non-mysterious part. The hard part is figuring out our mind. What in the world is that? Go ask a scientist these days and they'll tell you for sure that the mind is much more mysterious than electrons or quarks or tables. Descartes is saying, no, that's exactly backwards. What we know best, what's least mysterious, is the existence of the human mind. What's more difficult to understand is how we get knowledge of the physical world outside our mind. So the idea is, look, the possibility of the evil genius gives Descartes some reason to doubt physical objects. So they are not 100% certain, at least yet. However, that possibility of the evil genius gives him absolutely no reason to doubt his own mind and thoughts. So our beliefs about physical objects are subject to certain doubts that our beliefs about our own minds are not. And so the beliefs about our own minds are even more certain than beliefs about physical objects. So these beliefs about our own minds could serve as a secure foundation for our beliefs, but beliefs about physical objects cannot serve as a secure starting point. Lesson number 2, he thinks this teaches that the foundations of our knowledge consist of truths we learn from our reason, not things we learn from our senses. So my knowledge of my own existence, this cogito, can't come from my senses. My senses tell me that my body exists, my hands, my feet, my arms, my heart, my brain. And I can have knowledge of my own existence even when the possibility of an evil genius gives some reason to doubt what my senses tell me about the existence of this physical object. Thus, Descartes thinks our knowledge of our own existence is coming from our reason rather than our senses. All right, this second lesson is essentially Descartes rejecting empiricism in favor of rationalism. He's saying, no, we shouldn't be using the senses as the foundations, because that can't give us knowledge. What we need to use as the foundation is our reason. So remember, rationalism is this idea that at least some of our knowledge is not ultimately justified by sensory experience, but instead by our faculty of reason or thought alone. So that's it for this video. I'll see you next time.